If I had $1 for every time someone told me, you should turn your marriage into a movie, I'd have exactly enough to finance a crowd-funded indie film with subpar catering and a cast full of ex-theater kids who overuse the word vulnerable. Which is exactly what I did. Well, we did. My wife, Naomi, and I met in film school. She did screenwriting. I did directing. Our first date involved a stolen camera, a coffee shop, and a mutual love of stories where nobody really wins. 10 years later, we were married, burned out from studio pitch rooms, and eating pad thai on the floor of a loft that still smelled like the last tenant's failed incense phase when I had the idea. What if we made a film about us? Naomi blinked. Like a doc. No. A narrative. A love story. But real. Messy. Based on us. She didn't even hesitate. She just said, that's either brilliant or self-destructive. Why not both? I replied. We spent 6 months writing the script. Well, I wrote it. Naomi punched up scenes. Wrote a few flashbacks. Added this one beautiful monologue I still get emotional thinking about. It was us, through fiction. Our arguments, our inside jokes, our worst fights. A love letter to all the stuff people never show in rom-coms. We called it Still Frame. Shot it on a shoestring budget. Crowd-funded 30 grand. Borrowed lights. Bartered location access with free promo. Naomi pulled favors with old script consultant contacts. I called in every ex-crew member I hadn't pissed off yet. We cast 2 leads. Young, hungry, fresh. The guy playing me was a former barista named River who looked like someone printed out Timothée Chalamet in black and white. And the woman playing Naomi? Her name was Sadie. Aspiring actress. Big eyes. Sharp jawline. The kind of presence that made people stare without meaning to. Naomi handpicked her. Said she had depth. Said she could hold secrets in her posture. In hindsight, that was a bit of foreshadowing. Anyway, filming started. First few days were chaos, as they always are. Missing gear. Weather issues. An AD who quit halfway through day 2 because we didn't have cold brew on set. You know, indie film stuff. But something shifted around week 3. It was subtle at first. Sadie, playing Ava, the fictional Naomi, started drifting. Not from the character, but towards something else. Her line deliveries changed. Less shy, more venom. She began improvising. Not badly, but oddly. One scene, originally written as a quiet apology, suddenly had her say, "You knew I needed more than your slow unraveling, but you stayed anyway." I didn't write that. Naomi didn't either. Or at least I didn't think she had. I called cut. "Nice improv," I said casually. "Where'd that come from?" Sadie glanced at Naomi, who smiled faintly and said, "We played with that last night. Just ideas." I nodded. Didn't push it. Rewrites happen. That's the nature of collaboration. But it happened again. Scene after scene, Sadie started adding things. Little jabs. Specific moments. Like she was drawing from real fights. Our real fights. Stuff no one else would have known, unless Naomi had told her. Or written it. And every time I looked at Naomi, she looked back with that same small smile. Like she was watching something she'd already seen in her head. The turning point was a scene on day 18. We were filming a breakup argument. My fictional stand-in, River, was supposed to yell, "You don't get to rewrite history just because it's easier than admitting you were wrong." But instead, Sadie snapped, "That's rich, coming from a man who edits the truth in post." The crew froze. It landed like a slap. And Naomi? She laughed. Quiet. Like a director watching dailies and liking the take. After we wrapped for the night, I walked over to her. "Since when are we doing unscripted therapy sessions?" She didn't look up from her phone. Sadie's finding the character. That's what good actors do. She's improvising confessions. Naomi finally looked at me. "Maybe you should ask yourself why they sound so true." I didn't respond. Couldn't. Instead, I went home, sat on the floor, and stared at my laptop. Then, around midnight, something clicked. Naomi always worked from her own computer. Final draft was her sacred space. I respected it. Never snooped. But I remembered her asking me to proof a scene last week and forgetting to close the file. So I opened it. Buried in a folder called still_frame_v2, I found something else. A new file. Titled, spin-off_draft_3.fdx. I opened it. The header. Spin OFF. A Director's Betrayal by Naomi Kerr. The script wasn't about us. It was about a woman who co-wrote a film with her husband and slowly took it over. Rewrote the lines, slept with the lead actor, manipulated the edit, and sold the rights behind his back. It was fiction, but barely. I kept reading. One note in the margins. Sadie says she can push him further. River's in. Says he'll back me if I want producer credit. Producer credit. That's when the rage turned cold. Because now it wasn't about the film. It was about ownership. She was rewriting our story, not just on paper, but in real time. Making herself the victim. Painting me as the control freak. The emotionally distant director who couldn't handle being outshined. And she was grooming the cast to believe it. But here's the thing. While Naomi was rewriting the script, I was still directing the film. And I'd been quietly shooting a second project. A real behind-the-scenes documentary. Sound guys mic'd up the green room. Hidden cameras on rehearsal days. Interviews, candid ones, with crew members who started noticing things too. I had everything. And Naomi had no idea. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Anger is loud, and this felt quiet. Like sitting in a dark room and hearing something breathing behind you. No, I was planning. I reread Naomi's spin-off script 3 times before the sun came up. Each draft had changes. Some small, like altered dialogue. Others bigger, scene directions that recontextualized our story, twisted meanings. In one version, the main character walks out on her husband during the shoot and gets a standing ovation for doing it. There was even a title card suggestion for the final frame. Inspired by true events, written by the woman who survived them. I remember sitting there, numb, reading that line on loop until I had to laugh. She wasn't just rewriting the script. She was preparing the rebrand. That morning, I went to set early. Earlier than usual. Before the crew showed up. Before the actors arrived. Just me and the PA who always smelled like Red Bull and irony. I pulled up the interview station we'd used during pre-production. You know, for EPK material. Actor bios. What drew you to the role, Fluff? I set it up again. New SD card. Different angles. Then I started scheduling interviews. Privately. Nothing shady. Just quiet. I'd tell crew members, hey, we're doing more behind-the-scenes material. Just casual reflections. Most were thrilled. Indie folks will take any excuse to talk on camera. Validation's hard to come by when your paycheck is half a Chipotle burrito and 2 days of IMDb credit. I kept it simple at first. How's the shoot going? What's the vibe been like? Then I'd let them talk. Let the silence stretch. Let them ramble into truths. And slowly, a pattern emerged. She's intense, the makeup artist said, hesitantly. Like, brilliant, but she and Sadie talk a lot. Alone. One of the grips. You didn't hear this from me, but River thinks he's getting a co-producer nod. Naomi promised him something. Even the DP, who's worked on weirder sets than a Wes Anderson fever dream, said, there's a shift happening, man. Like, this isn't your movie anymore. It's hers. And Sadie's. Kind of feels like you're being written out. That one stuck. Written out. Like I was the background noise in my own film. Meanwhile, the shoot continued. We wrapped scenes. Got great dailies. The footage looked gorgeous. Naomi kept smiling during playback, giving tiny notes to Sadie. Changing lines mid-shoot and feeding them to River when I wasn't watching. But I was always watching. I started checking camera placement every morning. Made sure B-cam had wide coverage, even during rehearsals. Most of the crew thought I was just being extra. I wasn't. I was collecting. We were shooting a bedroom scene one night. An emotionally vulnerable argument where the couple confronts their lack of trust. Sadie, barefoot in a silk robe, nails the delivery. River paces. Tension's perfect. Then she says, unscripted, you knew I'd leave you someday. You just hoped it'd look prettier. Not in the script. Not even in the spin-off draft. Naomi doesn't cut. She leans in from behind the monitor and says, good. Let's run it again. Same line, but slower. Like you mean it this time. The hair on my neck stood up. After the second take, I call break. Everyone scatters for water and air. I stay behind. Naomi steps into the room, all photorector glow and coffee breath. You like it? She asks. You're directing now? I ask. She smirks. I'm shaping it. There's a difference. You're shaping our life into something that bleeds better on screen. Isn't that what we've always done? She says, tilting her head. No, I say. We've always turned pain into fiction. This is different. This is personal. She gives me a look, one I've never seen from her. Pity? Superiority? I don't know. but it freezes the air between us. She walks out without another word. That night, I pull River aside. It's just the two of us on a balcony outside the rented bungalow we use as base camp. Palm trees, cheap beer, one light bulb flickering above us like a dying bug zapper. You think this film is about Naomi now? I ask. He hesitates. Sips his drink. I think it's always been hers. She told you that. She didn't have to, he says. But yeah, she said she's pitching something bigger. A series. Said there's a production company interested. Netflix maybe. She said I'd be part of it. And did she say how that would work? Another pause. She said you'd probably walk after the premiere. That you're tired. Right. I finish my drink. Smile. Good to know. Because now I had what I needed. Motives. Timelines. Intent. But I needed one more thing. Proof. So the next day, I paid the sound guy a little bonus. Not for the actual shoot. For keeping a mic running between takes. Not always, just enough. Catch whatever rolls, I told him. Trust me. He gave me a look. Not quite approval, not quite concern. Just a professional shrug. 2 days later, he handed me a flash drive. You didn't get this from me. Inside. Gold. Multiple clips. Sadie and Naomi whispering in corners. Naomi coaching her on how to spin the film at Q&As. Telling her, word for word, this is my story now. He'll come around. Or he'll look petty. One clip in particular caught them after a bedroom shoot. Sadie laughing, breathless, saying, do you think he suspects anything? Naomi's reply, he always suspects. He just never reacts. That's the gift. He lets you finish your own lie. She said that like it was a compliment. She didn't know I was about to return the favor. 2 days later, I told Naomi I was adding a special documentary cut for the Q&A. For the backers, I said. BTS stuff. You know, intimate. Raw. She said, perfect. They'll love it. And smiled. Like she'd already won. She had no idea she'd been acting in my film all along. There's a moment in every con where the mark gets bold, too bold. They start believing their own story. They stop looking over their shoulder. They forget that someone might be watching. For Naomi, that moment came on day 32 of filming. We were 1 week out from wrap. Spirits were high. Our crowdfunding backers were getting updates. Naomi was planning the intimate cast party like it was the Oscars. She even ordered embossed invites that read, a love letter on screen. Cute. She'd also been pushing for us to hold the premiere early. Said it was better emotionally to keep the momentum going. Strike while the reel is hot, she said. I didn't argue. Not anymore. Because while she was busy throwing glitter on a grenade, I was editing. Every night after set, I'd sneak into the back room of the Airbnb we were renting as a production HQ, door locked. Soundproofed with hanging blankets. I had a separate laptop, external hard drives, and 3 folders labeled. Her lines. Their moments. Truth cut. It felt like assembling a heist. Except I wasn't stealing anything. I was just organizing her own mess. The affair, the manipulation, the spin-off pitch calls I caught on audio, all carefully time-stamped and cut for maximum clarity. I wasn't making a documentary. I was making evidence. And the more I watched the footage, the more I realized something. This wasn't a story about betrayal. This was a story about entitlement. Naomi thought she could borrow our lives, edit out her mistakes, and sell it all with a tearful monologue about moving on. She wasn't just writing a new narrative. She was auditioning for the role of the survivor. And Sadie? She thought she was the lead. I mean, she technically was. But I don't think she realized the cameras never stopped rolling. That I'd been capturing the off-script glances, the over-familiar touches, the way Naomi would rest her hand on the small of her back just a little too long after a take. One of the sound guys sent me a short clip late one night. Caught between scenes, when everyone thought mics were off. Naomi, do you think he knows? Sadie. If he does, he's doing a hell of a job pretending. Naomi, laughing, that's what makes him so good at directing. He edits reality. God, that line. She meant it as a jab. I took it as a compliment. Because she was right. I edit. I direct. And now, I was in post-production on her downfall. A week before the premiere, Naomi sat me down for what she called a brand alignment chat. She said it like we were co-CEOs of some overpriced skincare startup. We need to be united, she said. For press. Press. I asked. There's interest. IndieWire wants to do a feature. I sent them a few clips. Sadie's already spoken to a podcast. The one that does deep dives on auteur couples. Auteur couples, I repeated. She smiled. That's us. At least for now. That line hung in the air like smoke. She kept talking, pitching ideas for coordinated outfits, maybe a joint Instagram post. Meanwhile, I just nodded, took notes, smiled like the guy who still thought she was brilliant. I was wearing the mask so well, even I almost believed it. But then she said something that sharpened everything. She leaned forward and said, "Just so you know, the real story is mine now. I know you'll make it look beautiful, but I'll make it mean something." I smiled back and said, "Of course you will." She wasn't wrong. She would make it mean something, just not what she thought. By now, the documentary was nearly finished. I'd cut it like a behind-the-scenes short, but darker, more intimate. It started light, almost charming. On-set footage, laughter, cast bonding, Naomi's early script notes, us pitching the original idea to backers. Then the tone shifts. Audio clips, flashes of Sadie and Naomi whispering between takes. Rewritten scenes layered with voiceover, Naomi's edits, her notebook scribbles. Then the night footage. A blurry shot from a distance. Naomi and Sadie kissing just off set, lit by the dim glow of a monitor screen still playing a take of Ava breaking up with Liam. Poetry. The final 10 minutes are Naomi's recorded spin-off pitch to a producer. Her saying, "He's not even the creative driver anymore. I've got the cast. I've got the voice." And then, my voiceover. She thought she was rewriting the story. What she didn't know was, I never stopped filming. I cut to black. Then the title card. Still frame, the documentary cut. Written, directed, and owned by Ryan Ellison. And just under that, all footage was legally captured on a signed set, with full release. That line wasn't for the audience. It was for Naomi. I'd included it because she'd always said, "Power is who controls the edit." Well, here we were. 2 days before the premiere, I dropped a fake hard drive labeled Premiere Cut into the projectionist's hand and said, "This is the final one." Naomi's seen it. It's approved. She hadn't, obviously, but she was too busy soaking up interviews to double-check. The cast started posting teasers. Sadie posted a story in a silk dress saying, "Excited to share our labor of love." A film about truth, growth, and letting go. Oh, it was definitely about truth. She just hadn't read the final script. Naomi spent the final day prepping for the Q&A. She wore all black, power move, smoky eyeliner, hair up, director mode, fully activated. As we stood backstage before the screening, she took my hand. Not in love, just for optics. "Ready to make people cry?" she asked. I looked her in the eyes and said, "They won't know what hit them." She took that as a compliment. The house lights dimmed. The audience hushed. Dozens of backers, critics, and friends of the production sat, ready for the love story of the year. And on screen, the real story began. There's a unique kind of silence that only happens right before something implodes. It's not quiet, not really. It's compressed. You can hear air moving, seats creaking, throats being cleared too softly. It's the kind of silence you get when everyone in the room expects one thing and senses, deep in their bones, that something very different is about to happen. That's what filled the small indie theater as the opening title card flickered onto the screen. Still frame, a love story. Written and directed by Ryan Ellison. So far, so normal. The lights went fully down. Naomi, seated beside me in the front row, crossed her legs and leaned back like royalty awaiting a tribute. Sadie sat 2 seats down, already blinking fast like she could feel the applause waiting for her at the end. But that applause? Yeah, it wasn't coming. Because 30 seconds into what everyone thought was going to be an earnest little marriage drama, I swapped the script. Instead of the fictional scene of Ava and Liam meeting at a bookstore, the screen went black for 2 beats, then cut to behind-the-scenes footage. No narration, just the raw feed of Naomi and me pitching the project to backers in my apartment last year. "Naomi, this is about showing what love looks like when it isn't cute. When it's inconvenient, hard, real. Me. We're not idealizing anything. We're telling the truth, even if it's ugly." The theater was silent. Then came a time-stamped montage. Naomi in production meetings, giving Sadie notes, changing lines, whispering to River between takes. I'd edited the first 5 minutes like a documentary intro. Soft piano, neutral tone. I gave Naomi just enough rope to look like a genius. Then I pulled it. Because the next scene? Naomi and Sadie in the back of the set bungalow. It was dark, grainy, caught on one of the crew cameras nobody knew was recording, but clear enough. Naomi leaning in, whispering something. Sadie smiling. Naomi's hand sliding onto her hip. The audio was crisp, and now the room changed. People leaned forward. You could feel it. That tension when your brain catches up with your gut and says, "Oh, this isn't the movie we thought we were watching." The screen kept rolling. Clips of Naomi promising River a co-producer title. Clips of her directing Sadie off script. Clips of Naomi on a phone call saying, "I'm not worried about Ryan. By the time he sees what I've done, it'll be too late. He doesn't fight." I'd captioned it, then added my voiceover. She was right about one thing. I don't fight. I film. And I don't rewrite stories. I document them. Naomi shifted next to me. Slow at first, a little weight off the left foot, a stiffening of the jaw. Then, more frantic. She leaned over. "What is this?" she hissed. I didn't look at her. "It's the truth cut," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "The one we agreed the audience deserved." "I didn't agree to this," she snapped. "I know." She stood, tried to wave at the projectionist like she was hailing a cab. No response. I'd given strict instructions to keep the feed rolling unless I personally said otherwise. No exceptions. A backer, one of the bigger donors, a guy who loved quoting French New Wave directors, turned toward her and whispered, "You okay?" Naomi sat back down, stiff, palms pressed to her thighs, face frozen. "Sadie?" She looked like she'd swallowed an entire ice cube. The film continued. Sadie joking on mic after a take. "Do you think Naomi's actually going to leave him once this wraps?" Naomi's voice from the shadows. "Let's finish the scene first. Then I'll decide." I didn't add commentary. I didn't have to. I let the footage speak. I let the betrayal narrate itself. Then, the crescendo. I cut to Naomi's laptop screen, captured during one of her editing nights, where she'd left her final draft files open. The camera zoomed in on the title. Spin, off_draft_3.fdx. Then a quick insert of her notes. Pitch Sadie as lead. Netflix rep wants feminist angle. Cut Ryan from production. Too quiet. Too director why. I let that linger. Then faded to black. And the voiceover returned. Me, one last time. Some stories write themselves. But this one didn't. This one tried to erase me. So I made sure you all saw the first draft. Before it was rewritten. The credits rolled over silence. No music. Just names. Crew. Actors. Camera operators. And then, a final credit. All footage used under legal consent and full release by all parties on set. No performances were edited without context. This film is not fiction. It is documentation. The lights came up, and for a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, someone clapped. Then another. Then the room erupted. Not into wild cheers. Not into standing ovations. It was something else. It was recognition. People stood. Nodded. A kind of reverent, stunned applause that meant, "Holy hell. That was real." I stood. Not to bow. Just to stretch. Naomi remained seated. Sadie slipped out quietly. Smart move. The Q&A began. We'd planned for Naomi to moderate it. Instead, the mic went to me. A critic stood. "Ryan, was this always the plan?" I smiled. "No, it was never the plan. But it became necessary." Another voice. "Do you consider this revenge?" I shook my head. This isn't revenge. This is transparency. The story she was telling was only half the truth. I wanted you to see the rest. The final question came from the French New Wave guy. He didn't ask anything. He just said, "I believed her. Until I saw you." Then he nodded and sat down. The first article dropped 6 hours after the premiere. Headline: Indie filmmaker hijacks own movie premiere to expose director-wife's affair. Audience applauds. There was a photo embedded. Me, standing calm during the Q&A, mic in hand, face unreadable. And just over my shoulder, Naomi. Frozen mid-blink, mid-panic. She looked like someone watching the ground fall away under her heels. I didn't leak the story. That's the beauty of truth. When it's compelling enough, it leaks itself. By noon, there were a dozen think pieces. Real-life gaslight. He filmed everything, and she didn't see it coming. Still frame isn't a movie. It's a confession. When the director becomes the documentarian. The internet had decided. This wasn't a scandal, it was cinema. Naomi tried to get ahead of it. She posted a statement to her socials. White text on a black background. The usual apology not apology format. "I'm heartbroken. This has been incredibly painful. Private matters should remain private. This is not the story I agreed to tell. That last line, it stuck. Because that was the entire point. She tried to frame it like I'd violated some sacred trust. Weaponized footage. Edited her to look bad. Which, technically sure. I'd edited her. I'd edited all of it. But I hadn't made her say anything she hadn't said. Hadn't shown anything she hadn't done. Hadn't distorted a single frame. I didn't need to. The truth was loud enough. She threatened legal action next. Her lawyer sent a cease and desist that read like it had been written by ChatGPT under duress. Unauthorized footage, defamation, intellectual property misappropriation. My lawyer's reply? One sentence. All footage was obtained with signed on-set releases, and the content shown is factual, time-stamped, and falls under protected creative work. We attached the documents. All signed, including hers. She never read them closely. I know this because she once bragged, early in the shoot, I trust you with the paperwork. I just want to focus on the art. Right. The art. Naomi tried another route, victimhood. She reached out to a feminist podcast that had booked her months earlier for a women in film episode. The host agreed to go ahead, probably saw the clickbait opportunity. The episode was titled, When Your Story is Stolen. I listened to it in full. She started slow, sympathetic, voice cracking in all the right places. I was trying to tell something honest, she said. And somewhere along the way, I became the villain in a narrative I didn't write. The host nodded supportively, then asked, were the events in the documentary true? Naomi paused, then said, parts of it. That was her mistake. Because by the time the episode aired, the internet already had the receipts. Clips of her spin-off script. Screenshots of her notebook. Stills from the leaked footage, not by me, but by someone on the crew who decided it was worth posting. A Reddit thread titled, Naomi Kerr, the real-life rewrite queen, was stickied for 3 days straight. One top comment. Imagine being so obsessed with controlling the story that you forget who owns the camera. Another had over 20K upvotes. She tried to write the director out of the movie. He just changed genres on her, from romance to thriller. I didn't respond publicly. Didn't need to. I let the doc speak. Let the view count climb. When IndieWire reached out for a follow-up interview, I agreed. On one condition, no questions about Naomi. They complied. The interviewer asked, was this film about revenge? I said, it was about documentation. He asked, and what now? I smiled. Now, I go back to work. Because while Naomi was busy booking image repair appearances and giving TEDx talks on narrative safety, I was meeting with streamers. Turns out, when you make a real story that raw and that public, people want the next thing. They asked if I'd do a follow-up. I said no, but I did pitch a series. Fiction, technically. A show about a filmmaker who realizes his marriage is a script he didn't write and starts rewriting the ending. Amazon passed. Netflix didn't. Sadie tried to pivot next. Posted a series of videos to her followers titled, What You Didn't See on Screen. She cried in one of them. Said she was manipulated. That she didn't know the full situation. That Naomi had blurred the lines between character and reality. It didn't land. People weren't buying the I thought it was acting defense when there were videos of her in Naomi's lap between takes and calling the crew my team, like she was the new showrunner. Casting agents stopped returning her emails. River? He ghosted both of them. Probably the smartest move anyone made in this entire saga. As for Naomi, she tried one last thing. She invited me to dinner. Said she wanted closure. I went. Why not? We met at a neutral restaurant. Small plates, dim lighting. The kind of place that pretends to be modest but charges $18 for 3 olives. She looked older. Not in a bad way. Just tired. Like a person who'd been living too many versions of herself for too long. I know you probably hate me, she said, as soon as we sat. I shrugged. I don't hate you. She blinked. You don't. Hating someone means they still have power over your story. You don't. She sipped her drink. So what now? I keep making films. And me? I don't know, I said. You'll write something. You always do. She laughed, bitterly. Not if everyone thinks I'm the villain. You're not the villain, I said. You're just the unreliable narrator. She nodded, quiet for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and handed me a thumb drive. What's this? My next script, she said. I wrote it before everything. I don't expect you to read it. I needed you to know it exists. I pocketed it. Never opened it. The ending had already been written. I never opened the thumb drive. Not out of anger. Not out of pride. Just because I didn't need to. Naomi had spent so long trying to rewrite our story that she forgot what I actually do. I don't chase plot twists. I don't cling to endings. I cut. I edit. I finish. The month after the premiere was a blur. Interview requests. Option offers. A few think pieces trying to both sides the story, but those died fast, buried by the raw clarity of the footage. There's only so much ambiguity you can manufacture when the mic's been rolling the whole time. People love a well-framed betrayal. They love it more when the person betrayed doesn't scream, doesn't cry, just tightens the frame and lets the scene speak. I wasn't the hero. I was the narrator. And that's enough. The doc hit 2 million views when we quietly released it on a VOD platform. I declined most press. Naomi, to her credit, disappeared from the narrative. Probably the best PR move she made since the whole thing imploded. I heard through a mutual friend that she'd moved to Portland. Teaching workshops now. Authentic storytelling through feminist film structure. Sure, Sadie tried to relaunch on TikTok as a self-worth advocate. Got flamed in the comments every time she said healing is non-linear. Deleted her account eventually. River started a podcast. Reviewed gear. Stayed neutral. Smart man. And me? I finished the series pitch. It got greenlit. Fictional, technically. Inspired by a filmmaker whose wife tried to overwrite his life into her spotlight, and how he calmly turned the spotlight back around. First episode ends with a scene where the main character watches his partner walk off stage at a Q&A, as the audience claps for him instead. A little on the nose. Maybe. But I earned that moment. I moved to a new city after production wrapped. Rented a quiet place near the water. White walls. Clean lines. I keep the lighting dim and the sound equipment boxed. The only camera I keep on the desk is analog. No memory cards. No playback. Just the option to frame something and let it go. Some nights I walk to the harbor. Bring a notebook. No laptop. And I write. Not about Naomi. Not anymore. I write fiction again. Pure fiction. Nothing anyone can hijack, bend, or brand as based on a true story. Just characters who lie, cheat, betray, but only on my terms. One of the streaming execs sent me a bottle of wine after the trailer went viral. The card read, "To the man who reminded us that the quiet ones always hold the footage." He wasn't wrong. Last month, I got a package. No return label. Inside, a printed manuscript. The same title Naomi told me was on that thumb drive. I didn't read it. I slid it onto the shelf next to the other unfinished projects. Ones I started, abandoned, or outgrew. Let her words collect dust for once. Let her learn what it feels like to be edited out. The final shot of my new series ends with a single frame. A director walking away from a stage. Alone. No applause. No voiceover. Just silence. And the camera, still rolling. Fade to black. Subscribe to the channel